Hello everyone, it's Ryan with Frontline Animal Removal. Today we're going to talk about different raccoon traps or animal traps, their different designs, their advantages and their disadvantages. So I got a bunch of traps lined up. Let me show them to you. As you can see, I got 6 different traps here lined up. Most of them look the same. They're cage wire and they're square and they got doors on the end. And we got the plastic one here in the middle. 3 of these traps have boards attached to the bottom of them. I'll get to that in a minute. But let's go to the very first trap. The very first trap we have over here is this green job. I don't use this trap. This trap was given to me by a customer. But it represents the most basic of cage traps. The one advantage this trap has is the steel door. And what makes that an advantage is if you catch a skunk in here, you can approach it from straight on with the door closed and the skunk can't see you. So you don't get sprayed. The way most of these traps work is you have a treadle, pan, trigger, whatever you want to call it. I don't care. And the animal steps on the pan, the door closes. Just like that. The reason why I don't use this trap, it is very cheaply made and it's not very rugged. A customer was having trouble catching critters and they gave up. And in frustration, they said, I don't want this trap anymore, and they made me take it. Now, what makes this trap cheap besides being thinly made with thin wire? There's no extra reinforcement back here. How is that a problem? Raccoons can fit their paws through these holes and they have about an 8-inch reach. So if you put your bait back here, a raccoon wants to get to the bait, they can avoid the front and just reach through the bars and get to the bait. They can reach to the top, they can reach through the back, they can reach through the side, so they can get to the bait that way. The other problem with these cheaply made traps is if you do get a raccoon to come inside and he gets trapped, because it's very thin metal, they can sometimes bend or break the doors off and escape. That's not your goal. You want to catch the animal and get rid of them, not have them get a free meal and break your trap and get away. Now, another thing with these style of traps is when the animal enters, they have to step on this. Well, many times the animals don't want to step on that. It might be because that's a different material. It's shiny. So often they will step over the pan to get to the bait. So some of the things that we do to help is we will wire the bait to the top of the cage in a little mesh container so they can see it and smell it, but they can't easily get to it. What that does is it takes the animal's mind off of the pan and they have to reach up and pull and work at that. Well, since they're working at the bait that's wired to the top of the cage, they lose, here's some bait wire to the top of the cage. It's all beat up from the raccoon because he was trying to get it out after he was caught. So that's an example. So while they're trying to get the bait off here, they take their mind off the pan and they step on it and the door closes and they're caught. And another good thing with this pan is it does not go up at a steep angle. That makes it more likely the raccoon will step on it. Now let's move on to the better quality trap. This is essentially the same trap, but it has some advantages. One advantage is there's a door here that we can unhook and slide up, place the bait inside. The wire that makes up the cage is much thicker. The door on the front is wire mesh. That's a disadvantage when you're dealing with skunks, but it's a very heavy duty thick metal, and this bar here, which is the brace, is much heavier duty than this thin stuff, which can be bent easily. Another thing I like about this trap is when it's set, we'll set it. That pan is a nice shallow angle, and it's longer. It is probably about 2 inches longer than that pan. You might be asking, well, why is that better? Because it's longer and a shallower angle, the animal's less likely to step over it to get to the bait at the back. And because it's a shallower angle, it doesn't stick up as much, so he's much more likely to step on it. And as you can tell, that pan's worn quite a bit. It's got some rust in it, dirt all over it. This trap's been used a lot. It's been a very good cage for me. And you notice here, we have a fine mesh. Raccoon can't reach into the back of the trap because, well, here he can reach, but here he can't. That protects your bait. So now you're forcing the raccoon to go into the front to get to the bait that you've suspended in the back, and he's much more likely to step on the pan. So this is a nice, awesome, heavy-duty trap. Now let's move on to the next one that is similar, yet different. Now here we have another cage trap. Let me set it and show you what makes this one different. This one doesn't have a metal pan. It's got this wire grid. Also, the trap door set, the door doesn't stick out here in the end. That's an advantage. The advantage is you can butt this trap up right to a hole, put it flush, the door won't be in the way, and you can force the animal into the cage. The other advantages of having the door hinge back here is it closes down, and then the animal can't reach out and damage material in front of or around the trap. Also, not only is this heavy gauge wire, but it's half inch wire. There's absolutely nowhere on this trap the raccoon can reach out except through the door, which is just bars. Another good thing about this trap is the pan is hinged backwards. So instead of having the raccoon step on the back of it, they step on the front. Now the reason why they did that is back here we have very little space to put bait. So you want to get the animal to step on the edge here. The disadvantage of the trap is we have very little space back here to place the bait. The animal's much more likely to step over the pan and get the bait. But you notice we have these black bars. That's the framework of the trap. Very heavy metal. This front door, very heavy duty metal. This is all very heavy duty. That pan in there, very heavy duty. So with this trap, when we are placing it in situations that we do not want to, we use this in situations where we do not want the animal to be able to reach out through the cage. This is a very heavy trap. Much heavier than these other traps that I have, just because of the amount of metal involved and its ruggedness. That is a disadvantage when you're trying to carry heavy raccoons off of a roof or down a ladder, because it's rather awkward. But you don't have to worry about them reaching out and scratching you, so that's a benefit. But with this one, because of the small bait area in the back that's easy to step over, you almost have to suspend the bait every time in the trap. And with this trap, I tend to get bait stolen more often than my others. However, the advantage is when I do catch the raccoon, they cause less damage to the surroundings and less mess because of the fine mesh. So let's move on to our next one. Now this is one of our old traps, and I like this trap. Now it has several disadvantages, but it has several advantages. So let's set the front door. So what makes this one different? Well, we have a huge trigger area down here. It sits at a nice shallow angle, and it's the same material as the bottom. So raccoons are not very, they're not really aware of that. They step on it quite regularly. I like that. I get better catches with this trap. Disadvantages. We don't have fine mesh up here. We don't have fine mesh here, and we don't have fine mesh here. We do have a little protective area here. On some of these I've modified by extending the fine mesh, and I've extended it down here. Another disadvantage, the door sticks way out. So sometimes the raccoons, while entering the trap, because this door sticks way out, they sometimes will bump it. And the biggest disadvantage with this trap is rollover. Now let me show you. The way this trap door works, the animal steps on the pan, the door drops, and these two washers slide down and they hold the trap door closed. The animal does not have the ability, nor is smart enough, to slide both of those washers up at the same time to escape. It's very effective. There is a problem. When the trap is on the ground, it could get rolled, and this does happen. The raccoon rolls the trap onto the side, or he rolls it upside down. Now he can slide these and they'll stay put, and he can push the door open. In the right position, you slide them up, they fall back down. The animal stays caught. But if they roll the trap, they're getting out. And I've had that happen. So almost always with this trap, we mount it on a board, or we stake it to the ground to prevent the trap from getting rolled. But very effective trap, and very rugged trap. We've used them for many years. You know what? I need something to hold my trap, so I better put this here. Now this one looks like a white bucket. Pretty much is a white bucket. You can call these poly traps. But they work just like these. We'll look up inside. We have a metal pan for him to step on, just like the others. The door closes down, just like the others. And when the door is closed, it looks just like that. So why would we use a poly trap? Well, the main reason for the poly trap is the animals are not familiar with it. Because raccoons are intelligent, if they were ever trapped in a cage trap, they will remember that, and they will remember never to go into cage trap again. Poly traps they're not familiar with, because nobody uses them. We use them because we're willing to spend the money for them. These traps are expensive. They cost several times more what the normal cage trap costs. So most trappers won't use them because they feel that it's not worth it. However, because the trap is plastic, it smells different, it feels different, it sounds different. So the animals are not familiar with it. They are not afraid of it. They are more likely to walk in versus a cage trap, which they may have seen before or are familiar with. Another advantage of the poly trap is there's no holes in it. I mean, it's completely sealed up everywhere. Even where the mechanism has to go through, there's a piece of metal inside to block the hole. The only place we have holes is in the front here for air circulation and around the side. This contains mess, because often when the raccoons are in the traps, they go poop, they go pee, and they make a big mess, and you don't want to leave that on customers' sidewalks, decks, roofs, driveways, whatever. And they can't reach out from the outside and cause damage. The only place you have to worry about is right here at the front, because they can shift the door and get their little arm out and maybe grab or damage something right here, but that is it. So very effective trap for trap shy raccoons, and contains the mess. So we like this trap. Another advantage is if you're in a high profile area and you don't want anybody paying any attention to your animal. You know, it just looks like a big plastic bucket, and nobody will notice the animal's in there. So we like these. I like them a lot. I use them a lot. And finally, we're on to our last trap for raccoons. And I just set it off. This one's a double door trap, but they also make these in a single door. And what is the advantage of these? Well, they don't have a pan to step on. They got some wires in here. So when this trap is set, door sticks out like the others. It's cage, extra wire down here to protect it so the animals can't reach into stuff. If you notice, we get these trigger wires. Now, over here we got a secondary door. I've used this trap by placing bait in the back, only setting the one door, keeping this door closed, and I've had raccoons going in, grab the bait, and get caught. The other way you use this is you set this door, which is identical to this. You attach it to the hole so it catches them leaving the hole, or it catches them going in because you've blocked it except for that end. The way this works is as the animal tries to go through the trap, they push the wires to the side, the door closes. These traps are very rugged, heavy gauge wire, heavy bars, and they have 4 springs on each door. So these are power doors. They push down and lock down hard. There's no way the raccoon's going to get those open. These are also expensive traps, but they're super effective. Probably my most effective trap at catching raccoons, because there's no treadle for them to step over. They have to brush the wires aside to get to the bait or to pass through. Now, the last thing I'm going to mention is the wood here. When we're trapping on roofs or anywhere that we're worried about damage from the animal reaching through the wire, because on the bottom we just have the 1 inch by 1 inch wire that they can reach through, we mount the boards on traps, and they're wired to the board, and then the boards are mounted onto the roof. This protects your shingles. That's a good thing. So if you're ever trapping on your roof, mount the trap to a solid structure that the raccoons can't damage the shingles, because I've seen roofs completely destroyed by raccoons because someone set a trap on the roof and did not protect it. Also, you have to be careful where you set the trap, because the raccoon can reach out about 6 to 8 inches from the cage, so you've got to maintain 6 to 8 inches around it from anything like wires, siding, anything that is in good condition you don't want damage. You keep the trap 6 to 8 inches away from it, because if the raccoon can reach it, it's in the cage. So those are some of the advantages and disadvantages of these traps. Now this trap, the only real disadvantage is it's kind of a pain in the butt to set, but that's about it, and it's expensive. So those are some of the different traps I use to snag raccoons. They also work for possums and groundhogs and skunks, but these are what we use for raccoons. And we have a few other traps, but these are the most common ones. And maybe you learned something. I hope you did. And if you are confused by any of this, just ask. So if you're having trouble with critters and you need some help, give us a call. We can give you some advice, or we can come out and trap the critters for you and make them go away. Thank you.